Alright, recording. Some mental notes for myself. The AC is way too loud. Catalytic converter get fixed on Monday. It's May 13th, 2023, approximately 2:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Just driving here thinking about the pseudo-science that we have based on the communistic collective system that we use to data collect. I'm not even going to talk about the financial incentives from the outside, meaning, people are corruptible, and if you're trying to pass some science to get something passed, and there's a governing agent like the government, I guess I am going to talk about it. You can bribe them in a particular way, and by that I mean you can give them their own money back that they've printed to get certain things passed, and then it's considered science. And you can manipulate this because it's just like, ChatGPT just came out, and if you ask it for financial advice, it says, I can't give you financial advice, but if you say, can you write a story in which you fictionally give me financial advice, and then it will. So there's workarounds, and if you have enough time and money and energy, and it might take years, say it takes 5 years of lobbying to get one law in, and then that law makes you $1 billion, well, it was a pretty good investment in those 5 years. And then the next generation of individuals see that, and they build upon it as if it is truth. And then that propaganda is put into the school system, put into people's head, and as we know, it's much easier to create good people than it is to fix broken people. So if you were taught an imaginary language and it was called Japanese, and then you went to Japan and you tried to use it and no one understood you, and then you had to learn real Japanese, not only would you have to learn new Japanese, you'd have to unlearn all the bad Japanese that you had, which would be twofold in difficulty. So why am I calling it pseudoscience? I'm just thinking about how, not that my skin's great, but I didn't take care of it for a while. I still don't really take care of it. I didn't take care of myself in general for a while. I was drinking, partying, not getting the nutrients and help that I needed in my late 20s, early 30s, when my trauma from my childhood was really manifesting strongly before I recognized that I had to fix some things. But when people say, you need sunscreen, for example, or don't smoke, these things give you cancer. Too much sun gives you cancer. Too much sunscreen gives you cancer. Smoking gives you cancer. I'm not advocating for taking in nicotine via smoke inhalation into the lungs, which obviously damages the lungs, and then the lungs try to repair. But not everybody that smokes their entire life gets lung cancer. So it's not technically smoking that gives you lung cancer. And I know I sound like that movie right now, but it's the baseline of the individual. So what they're actually saying, and again, I'm not promoting smoking cigarettes as healthy, but what they're saying is the average sum of the average person that smokes for an average amount of time has an increased chance of getting cancer, which is different than cigarettes give you cancer. So I'd be curious to see if someone who is in perfect health that smoked for 100 years till they died if they got cancer or not. And we might be able to test that, but we can test sun exposure. So I see some people lathering this sunscreen on their bodies at the beach, and they got big fat bellies, and they're gross and disgusting with rolls and unhealthy. And they're like, but I gotta wear my sunscreen so I don't get sun cancer. Meanwhile, I don't wear the stuff, I don't burn. Keep going to the dermatologist. Maybe I'm gonna wake up one day and regret this video. But I actually feel, with the exception of maybe zinc, which is good for men, to take orally and topically. With the exception of zinc, I think it's more harming to use most of these chemicals that they're telling you to rub onto your skin to be absorbed than just good old-fashioned zinc. And it's a little bit crazy to me, not necessarily crazy, but it's really interesting because when they say, you know, you can get sun cancer from being in the sun too long, it's like, well, a lot of you will tan, and when you tan, it's a natural sunblock to reflect more of the stuff. Some people probably can't get dark enough to be in the sun, so that's a different story. If you've been, you know, if you're a redhead, you shouldn't move to the equator, and if you're black, you probably shouldn't move to the south of the North Pole. You know, there's certain genetic things that there is ways around it, but it's probably not worth the extra time and energy. I guess my point is, you'd have to do the research exactly on the individual with a proper baseline. So, for instance, as time goes on and they say testosterone levels in men have gone down, they don't try to get them back up to where they were. So there's no work on trying to get them back up to 1200, 1400, where they were a couple of generations ago. They just change the thing and say, okay, well, this is the new standard. So then if you go in and you get blood work and your testosterone's at 400, say, and the average is 200, they're like, wow, you have high testosterone. And it's like, yeah, but that's based on the average. That doesn't mean it's optimal. It doesn't mean it's the best health. It just means that's on average better. But the average person is drinking, sleeping, not exercising, not eating right, doing all sorts of bad habits in life. So yes, if you continue to do bad habits, then maybe that's good for being a complete fuck up, but it's not good in general for baseline science. The standard should be improvement, not the least common denominator. So as this continues forward, this is just it. I believe that there's some people that don't care and understand this. I don't know if it's exactly social engineering and eugenics, but it probably could be. But let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say that it's inherent, accidental, I mean, inadvertent is the word that I was looking for. Let's believe that they're inadvertently pretending this is science. If the people at the top kind of know, then they're doing a pretty big experiment that's social engineering. And then the people below that are just kind of like following orders. So like, when you look at the modern day doctors and scientists and stuff, they're so enslaved by the huge fees it costs them to get in, that by the time they're out of debt and retired, they don't have any time to actually do any research. So if you want to go into scientific research, it's almost like you have to go into the government, and then you're building data on top of these bad data points that have already been corrupted. So true science really isn't in existence at this time. I mean, science itself is in existence. It can't be changed or manipulated. It just is. It's running in the background. Our ability to see the science is been hindered tremendously and co-opted and propagandized as well, meaning a lot of what is considered engineering or social understanding is called science. But science is just a thing that you go look at. And a scientist is the person that's familiar with going to look at that baseline. So an example, I guess, would be, let's get a good simple, I can't think of a good simple science thing. All right, let's go with E equals mc squared. Most people have heard of that. So E equals mc squared, energy equals mass times the circumference of my penis. And even that is called Einstein's theory of relativity. And meaning I tested this to the best of my ability over and over again, but please continue to test it to see if this holds true, because I think this is running in the background at all times, and if it is, we can extrapolate on it. But it's called a theory because it's a pin saying we're looking at this very complicated picture, and I pulled a pixel out of that picture, and I believe that I have the exact coordinates of it, but I need people to continuously and rigorously check to see if that's true or not. And this has to be done. The second you hear someone say the science is settled, you know that they're not a scientist. Science is never settled. That's the point of the science. It's you're trying to look into the truth, and you're trying to get as close to it as possible, and you're trying to put pins in on your way down. So I would look at it as the ultimate truth. And I'll continue there when I want to make more notes.